Welcome, Sens Talk.
Russell winds in, feeds it back across the strike, and scores! Brady Tkachuk makes it 2-0. Paul Giroux, hit alone, scores!
Tim Stutzock cross, Tkachuk score! The captain, Brady Tkachuk, buries it with 1:18 to go.
See you later. Go, Sens, go. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host. And we have some interesting breaking news today coming out of the nation's capital and the National Hockey League in regards to Shane Pinto. The Pinto saga has come to sort of a close, and it's not in the way you were expecting. It's not a signing, it's a suspension, as Shane Pinto has been suspended by the National Hockey League for 41 games for violating the NHL's gambling policy. The NHL has said he did not bet on NHL games, and by the way, players are allowed to bet on non-NHL events. Now, before I continue, I've spent the last hour and a half looking at all the reports, all the information available, because I want to get this right. I don't want to mislead you. I want to make sure I give you the most accurate and up-to-date information as possible. I'm recording this at 1 o'clock on Thursday, October 26th. And essentially what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break down the situation with what we know, and then I'm going to give my thoughts. So here's what we know so far. Firstly, a 41-game suspension for violating the NHL's gambling policy. Now, how will this affect Shane Pinto's contract? Because, Shane Pinto still has not been signed to a contract. Well, look, due to him not being eligible for an offer sheet since he's not a Group 2 RFA, his December 1st contract deadline is now voided. Now, if you didn't know, RFAs have to be signed by December 1st. Otherwise, they're not eligible to play the remainder of the year. We saw that almost with William Nylander a few years ago. Now, of course, since he's not eligible for an offer sheet, that deadline is voided, so he can be signed whenever this year. Now, the suspension as well, the 41-game suspension, is retroactive to Ottawa's first game of the year, meaning Pinto has technically already served 6 games already, so 35 more games to go before Shane Pinto is free to play again. Now, Bruce Garriock mentioned that NHLPA, the Player Association, may appeal the suspension, but we shall see on that. I just wanted to note this really quickly. Frank Cervelli just tweeted out that the NHLPA announced that Shane Pinto will not be appealing the suspension. Literally as I finished recording it, of course, that's my luck, but I just wanted to put that in there. Shane Pinto will not be appealing the suspension and will serve the 41-game suspension, which, as you'll see in the rest of this video, not that shocking. He took full responsibility for it. That was never really going to be the case, but we got confirmation just now that Pinto will not be appealing the suspension. So the earliest he could come back, as I mentioned already, is January 21st. I'd expect that to be a little later, though. Especially since Shane Pinto, in his statement from the Senator press release, of course, regarding to all of this, he mentioned that he took full responsibility and apologized. So when you take full responsibility in your only statement on the matter, it's very unlikely you're going to appeal it. You're taking full responsibility. What's there to appeal then? But we'll see on that. Maybe things could change. Frank Cervelli as well reports that Shane Pinto was suspended due to using a proxy, otherwise known as somebody else, to bet on sporting events. That's where the violation of gambling policies comes from. Garriock also notes it was an American betting account that Shane Pinto was allegedly using. So allegedly someone else in the United States was betting for him. Now, of course, that's a violation of, just in terms of gambling rules. All gambling apps and companies don't allow activities like that to occur. And because of that, Garriock reports that Pinto's online gambling account was flagged because of this by a partner company to the National Hockey League, and they recently contacted the NHL's head office. So what we know so far is Pinto did not bet on NHL games, but reportedly or allegedly bet on NHL games by somebody else placing the bet for him, which of course is a big no-no. Now, let's say there's no appeal, and Shane Pinto serves all 41 games of the suspension. His first game back technically could be January 21st against the Philadelphia Flyers, which means he'll basically miss 2/3 of the year. And more so, he won't be back January 21st. He hasn't played any games in nearly a year at this point, over a year going into January 21st. At that point, he'll be sent down to Belleville for at least a couple of weeks to get some conditioning, because he didn't even play in training camp or in preseason. So the guy is very much out of game shape. So on that, let's move on to Elliot Friedman. He spoke about the situation today on the 32 Thoughts podcast, put out a emergency podcast, I guess you can call it, a 13-minute episode. And so there are some key quotes here. So firstly, he mentioned for a long time, this Shane Pinto suspension was not a factor in regards to the contract negotiations. This only became a factor in the last couple of weeks, and as a result, it changed the dynamic where Ottawa was not going to sign Shane Pinto. So clearly, this is all new. This has nothing to do with the holdout or the contract situation with Shane Pinto. This has only come up in the last couple of weeks, according to Elliotte Friedman and other insiders around the National Hockey League. So it's safe to say that the suspension and this investigation by the National Hockey League had no effect on the contract extension. In fact, Bruce Garriock reported today that Pinto and the Sens organization were actually close on a 2-year, $2 million+ deal to bring him back into the fold. Obviously, that will not be happening now. Now, Friedman also added that Shane Pinto is appreciative that the Sens, Pierre Dorion, Michael Andlauer, Steve Stais, and the organization were quiet about the entire situation. They, the Sens organization, according to Elliotte Friedman, could have really squeezed him for a contract or done a whisper campaign against him. They did none of that, which shows truly a nice act of kindness and class from the Sens organization. Remember, when they brought Steve Stais into the fold, they wanted to be the best in class. This is a key example of that. This is a guy that Ottawa is going to need for a long time. He's a key part of this franchise and this core. He's a young player, a talented player, a player Ottawa used a high asset on, a top pick, essentially being a first rounder picked in the top 3 in the second round a couple of years ago. So for Shane Pinto, obviously that means a lot to him. And, we don't want to ruin the relationship with a young player like this, who he will need for quite some time. This is a guy that you spent a top pick on, okay? A top pick. That second round pick was essentially a first round pick. This is a guy that scored 20 goals for you last year, won over 54% of the faceoffs. This is a guy that wants to be in Ottawa, and to not, fracture the relationship is key. So, yeah, he made a mistake. It's not great. He's going to get suspended and pay the, do the time for it, I guess you can call it. But at the same time, that relationship with the Sens organization is still intact and seemingly still positive, which is great because Shane Pinto, his career is not done. He didn't bet on NHL games. It's not like a Pete Rose situation. He violated NHL gambling policy, which is also, of course, not a good thing, but it's entirely different to a Pete Rose situation where he's betting against or for the Sens. So the fact that that relationship there seemingly is okay is a great sign and a key detail out of all this. So my final thoughts are this. Look, it is a violation of many betting apps to use a proxy to place bets. So legally speaking, Shane Pinto is absolutely in the wrong. This would explain the suspension regardless of not betting on NHL games because look, the National Hockey League doesn't prohibit players from betting on MLB, NBA, NFL, whatever. You're allowed to, but obviously you're not allowed to break gambling policy and of course, in this aspect, asking somebody else to place the bet for you. You just can't do that. It is key to note that only Cervelli has reported this, and by no means it has been confirmed by the National Hockey League, by the Ottawa Senators, or by anyone else. So these are just reports or allegations right now. It's up to you to decide if you think that's the reason, but it would explain why the National Hockey League specifically mentioned Pinto didn't bet on NHL games, but still violated gambling policy, because that would kind of fit the bill. It's up to you to decide if it's true or not, but it absolutely sucks for the Sens, as they're going to lose a key player for essentially 2/3 of the year, at the very least. But the rules are the rules, and Shane Pinto broke those rules, and that's the end of it. If you broke the rules, you got to do the time. That's just what it is. You can't break the rules. So once again, an appeal may be coming, which could reduce the suspension, and there is a chance, in my opinion, at some leniency here, due to him not betting on NHL games. But frankly, I doubt it, because once again, this has been a few weeks of investigation by the National Hockey League. A betting company went to the head office of the National Hockey League to flag this behavior, and it violates league policy and betting policy from these apps. So legally speaking, Pinto doesn't really have much of a case, especially since he basically admitted to it by taking full responsibility. So that's kind of all we know right now. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, it's never a dull day in Sens land, as all of you know. And yeah, I mean, just an absolute crazy twist to the saga. I wish nothing but the best for Shane Pinto. Once again, everyone makes mistakes. Hopefully he learns from this mistake, and hopefully he'll be back in the fold sooner rather than later. But once again, it's a dumb mistake at the same time, because he obviously knows he can't do that because he went to a proxy to do the betting. So it's a tough situation. It really, really sucks. And putting all bias aside, you just can't do it. So for Shane Pinto, hopefully he'll be back soon. And hopefully the Sens and Pinto can move on from this when he comes back. Now, besides that, of course, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, like I just said. And I will see you later tonight after Ottawa takes on the New York Islanders. Hopefully, Ottawa can get a win and stop the losing streak. Besides that, I'll see you all soon. Go Sens, go.